Hey, everybody. Welcome to Moment of Clarity. I call this Moment of Clarity breaking news because I'm just going to going to go through some of the stories that are breaking, but are not really being covered enough on your mainstream media, or maybe at all. And so I have two big ones here for you, and then I'm going to maybe answer some questions. Please share this feed so we can have as many people as possible joining us. But yeah, two big stories. We're starting off with the new proof that has quietly been revealed of the DNC's rigging of their own primaries in order to stop Bernie Sanders from getting the nomination. This is one of those things where you're like, I thought we finished with that, 8 months ago or whatever it was. But this is how they do it, right? There is some form of rigging, some form of manipulation, some form of shenanigans, some form of scalawags, perhaps, that goes down, some flimity flamity that goes down in the primaries. And then they have like an investigation that drags on for months, and then they quietly reveal to you, oh yeah, we totally fucking rigged our own primaries. So what just came out, and I think I already said, please share the feed. Please hit subscribe if you can. I really appreciate it. So what just came out, and this is from Politico. Now, Politico, depending on what they're covering, sometimes garbage, sometimes not. But this article seems to be fairly truthful, although I'm also going to get to what Politico carefully doesn't tell you. Okay, so let's see here. This is the article. It is from Politico just today or the other day, that the Iowa report, I believe it's the Attorney General of Iowa, has just revealed their report about DNC meddling in the primaries. Now, before we get into the details, what you need to remember is that at that time, going into the primaries, the DNC, it very much looked like Bernie Sanders was going to win, or at least do very well. In most of the polling was showing him up. There was no clear person that could beat him. The only one that had kind of the name recognition was Joe Biden, but Joe Biden was, a doddering old man with a lot of issues in his past and hardly raising any money, having real difficulty. This is pre-pandemic, by the way. Buttigieg was, a young guy with no experience. Beto O'Rourke was flailing. Kamala Harris was collapsing. And they didn't want, the DNC establishment didn't want Elizabeth Warren either. So it was looking like Bernie very well could run away with this. And they knew certain things. They knew he was going to win New Hampshire. He was polling very well in New Hampshire. And the first two contests are Iowa and New Hampshire. Bernie, as in 2016, does very well in caucuses, and they knew that. A caucus tends to have more progressive candidates succeed because in a caucus, you have to actually show up and have a little meeting and stand around with everybody and say, here's why I'm voting this way, and here's why I support them. And that's why it screwed Hillary. I almost called her Killary, which would be appropriate considering the amount of bombs she enjoys dropping around the world. But it looked, for Hillary, it's very bad to have a caucus in 2016 because people who were voting for Hillary were like, I guess Hillary. Whereas people voting for Bernie Sanders were like, yeah, Bernie Sanders. So they could convince people to vote more for Bernie Sanders. So DNC knew that Bernie does well in caucuses, which is why they cut out something like half of all caucuses between 2016 and 2020 going into 2020. But the first two contests are still Iowa and New Hampshire. New Hampshire is not a caucus state, but he was running away with it in New Hampshire. So, and they knew that if Bernie Sanders got the momentum of winning Iowa, New Hampshire, possibly Nevada, they would be fucked. It would be over. The primary would be over before it even began. I mean, Bernie Sanders would just have won it easily. So they needed one of two things to happen. Either they needed someone to beat Bernie Sanders in Iowa, or they needed chaos. They needed it to not be clear who had won Iowa, what had fucking happened. That's what they needed. They didn't necessarily need someone to beat him. They just needed chaos. Because with chaos, you can't point to someone and say, wow, he won. He wouldn't get the enthusiasm. So How did they? Many of you may remember this story. I don't know. I don't know how much you followed it or not, but how did they create chaos in the Iowa caucuses? Well, it turned out, we found out a day or two afterwards that the chaos, and you might recall that they didn't announce a winner that night. Pete Buttigieg just ran out and said he won without any evidence. It was very bizarre. How did they do it? They inserted an app run by a company called Shadow. Literally, the name of the company is Shadow. Real fucking clever fucking crooks these are. The name it Fuzzy Bunnies or something. Call it the Fuzzy Bunny app, not the fucking Shadow app. So Shadow creates an app that every caucus, and there's like 1,000 or so, there's more than 1,000, have to input their results into. That app was what created the chaos. First of all, many of them were not trained well on the app. Secondly, when they put the numbers in the app, it didn't collate them correctly or whatever, report them correctly, so that no one could tell who had won the caucuses. And that was the design. That was by fucking design, that no one could tell what the fuck had happened in Iowa. So it slowly came out within the days afterwards that, well, I'll actually get to that part in a minute, because that's what Politico carefully doesn't tell you. But so here is the report that just came out. This is new. This is breaking. This just came out. This report from Iowa. Let me show it to you here again. This report from Iowa. This is from the, I believe, the Iowa Democratic Party State Central Committee made the report. And they say, oh, there's a lot of people to blame. There's several people to blame. But they make it very clear that one of the biggest people to blame is the DNC, is at the heart of the problem on caucus night. The Democratic National Committee, which we know is anti-Bernie Sanders. They're pro-establishment. They were in bed with Hillary Clinton. And then in this last election, they were in bed with, it started off as, Biden, but then he was flailing, so they pushed Buttigieg. But at the end of the day, it was Biden that they got, basically rigged it for him. According to this new report, the DNC demanded the technology company Shadow build a conversion tool just weeks before the caucuses, and didn't even consult the Department of Homeland Security. They claim that they're so worried about Russian interference and everything. Oh, other countries, China or whatever, North Korea is gonna, they're gonna hack our, and then yet, despite all of that bullshit, they create an app weeks before, hasn't been tested, hasn't been discussed with DHS, and they say, here, run all the results through this app. And so this is a quote from the new report. Attempting to graft an entirely new software element onto the back-end reporting system at the proverbial 11th hour is likely always going to be problematic, and it was ultimately the cause of a major problem on caucus night. Furthermore, the IDP was not involved in the development of this tool, the Iowa Democratic Party. The IDP simply permitted the DNC to direct the IDP's vendor. So without a doubt, there is now this new report makes it clear without a doubt that the DNC and the DNC alone said, use this fucking app that we have created weeks before. You have no idea what it is, but it's going to fix everything. It's going to make these caucuses great again, to quote Donald Trump. And what did it do? It caused a complete fucking shit show. And this same app, this Shadow app, was supposed to be used in Nevada as well, which is the third or fourth state to vote. And Nevada ultimately decided not to use the app because they saw the chaos it created in Iowa. But let's assume they had used it. That would mean that the DNC successfully created chaos in the first 2 of 3 primary races in order to stop Bernie Sanders. Now, here's where it gets into the juicy stuff. And this is stuff that I'm going to click away from the Politico article because Politico leaves this out. And I wonder why. This is where it really gets nice and juicy. So the Shadow app, this company, Shadow, a technology company, the entire Shadow upper echelon of people that the top of Shadow, the COO, CEO, they're all former Hillary staffers. It's Hillary people that have gone in there and created an app that is stopping Bernie Sanders from winning these primaries. All Hillary people. The Shadow company is then owned by a parent company called Acronym. The CEO of Acronym is a woman named Tara McGowan, who at the time is married to one of the top people on, wait for it, the Buttigieg campaign. One of the tops of the fucking Buttigieg campaign is married to the woman who fucking is the CEO of the company that created the app. And they had a dinner like a week before. No, I think it was the night before. I'm trying to remember. But it was like the night before. There was a dinner that involved her, the Buttigieg, head of Buttigieg's campaign, these Hillary staffer. Like, they weren't even, this was a like dinner at a restaurant. I mean, like, people could see them sitting together. They didn't even bother to hide half this shit. But it gets one more step better. Not only was one of the tops of the Buttigieg campaign married to the CEO of Acronym, but the Buttigieg campaign is found to have donated $40,000 to Acronym to create this app, to create chaos in Iowa. Buttigieg, mind you, then announces himself the winner the night of the caucus without anyone saying he had won it. These things starting to link together. Buttigieg knew in advance that this would happen. There's no way he couldn't. He's one of the heads of his campaign is married to the CEO of this company. They create this app that creates chaos. The app was meant to show the DNC live number updates, which, if working properly, would also let them know if they needed to basically stop the count because Bernie was running away with it. But there's no way he couldn't have known what was going down. And Buttigieg then declares himself winner. The media then runs with a combination of, we think Buttigieg won, but either way, it's too close to call. So they run around with it's too close to call until New Hampshire, where Bernie, as expected, wins rather easily. And then rather than saying, Bernie's won the first two races out of this primary, which would have given him a massive bump, all of a sudden, all the people in those following states start thinking, wow, this Bernie Sanders guy has a chance. I really liked what he was saying, but I thought he didn't have a shot, but now he's won the first two. That's interesting. Maybe I should look into it. It sounds pretty good. That would have given him a massive boost. The money would have come pouring in, but instead you have chaos in Iowa, and the media runs with a story of like, oh, well, Bernie won New Hampshire and Buttigieg won Iowa. And they run around with that. And then Iowa takes, I think it was like a weeks. It takes a long time to have an official stance on who won Iowa. And they eventually give it to Buttigieg, but with a tiny fraction of the number that it was like point something percent. Buttigieg won Iowa, which I can almost fucking promise you he didn't actually win Iowa. They had weeks to sit there and figure out a way to make it look like he did. But the key was the chaos. That was the key for the DNC. And now you have the Iowa fucking Democratic Party basically admitting that, saying this is the DNC's fault. The DNC did this. This is the new report just came out. Of course, this will get yes, Politico will write an article about it, but this will get no mainstream cable news coverage. You see, there's a difference between one little article in Politico and fucking CNN all day long blabbing on and on like they are about Biden winning the electoral vote today, which everyone knew was going to happen. So it's not really news. Biden won the election. He won it weeks ago. Not a secret. Donald Trump is fucking out of his mind. But so there's a difference between repeating it endlessly so that everyone finds out about something and one little Politico article that is meant to be basically ignored. So, I mean, this is truly incredible that, it's like now you're seeing this. Oh, and by the way, one other thing before I get to some COVID-19 redacted news that is not being covered on mainstream media. The one other thing that this does for the DNC, for the Democratic Party, is you have to remember they wanted to get rid the oligarchs of the DNC. These are the oligarchs of society, but in the DNC. They wanted to get rid of caucuses for a while now. Caucuses, and look, I'm not going to say caucuses are perfect. There are some complaints about them, such as you have to leave work and show up and be there and argue your point. And a lot of people don't have time to leave work. So there are issues with caucuses. But the reason the DNC wants to get rid of caucuses is because they favor more progressive candidates. They favor people that have a viewpoint that is not just the same shit as Republicans. So that's why Bernie Sanders did so well in the caucuses in 2016. So what did they do? They cut out something like half of all caucuses between 2016 and 2020. One of the remaining ones is Iowa that we've been talking about. However, I bet you in a year that the DNC uses this chaos in Iowa to get rid of caucuses. So this serves two purposes. It succeeded in helping to stop Bernie Sanders from getting the nomination, and it also succeeds in the DNC getting rid of the remaining caucuses so that they can more easily rig their own primaries and stop progressives, because they've seen the risk, quote unquote, that Bernie is to the standard corporate pro-war, pro-Wall Street, pro-environmental destruction tenets of the Democratic Party. So they're very excited that this could give them the reasoning to finally wipe away the remaining caucuses. Okay, so that's one new report I wanted to bring to you. Another, and feel free to throw in questions or comments. I will try to address a couple of questions when I get to the end of this next news story. As I've said, if you want mainstream garbage news, feel free to switch over to CNN. Go learn about how Joe Biden won the electoral college that everyone knew he was going to win. But so this is a story. Now, this has been getting some kind of, people have been trying to share this online, and it's been suppressed by Facebook and Twitter and others. And now, for those of you who need reminding, if you're looking for the Looney Tunes people that think that COVID-19 is not real, and that the entire world, including countries we despise, our government despises, like Iran, have all gotten together to pretend it's fake, then I'm not the person to look to, because that is not true. I regret to inform you, COVID-19 is very real. Now, how we've dealt with it is a fucking catastrophe, and it's shock doctrine. The rich use it as a reason to exploit all of us, as a reason to give $4.25 trillion to Wall Street. So it's used, just like every disaster is used by the ruling elite to have their way. But this is interesting. And I'm not going to say that this is a miracle drug, because I'd have to be a fucking scientist for that to come from me. But I am going to say that this is what this doctor is saying, and he appeared before Congress, and he had some very interesting points, and his testimony in front of Congress has been largely suppressed, has been largely covered up. And there might be a reason, if it is true that this drug is very effective against COVID-19, there might be a reason for that this has been slightly covered up. And the name of the drug, so the name of the doctor is Dr. Pierre Corey, and some of you have been sharing the video of him in front of Congress. I'm sure you can go out there and find it. I'm going to read a little bit. Actually, I can show it to you. I'm going to read a little bit of his testimony so we can go through it piece by piece. Hold on one second. Okay, so now you should have it. All right. So this is his written testimony in front of Congress from December 8th, 2020, in front of the Homeland Security Committee meeting on COVID-19. And he said a lot of interesting things, but he said, seemingly the only research and treatment focus that we have observed on a national scale is with novel or high-cost pharmaceutically engineered products such as remdesivir, monoclonal antibodies, and word I can't pronounce, tocilizumab, which also was the name of one of the characters in Jumanji. With all such therapies costing thousands of dollars, this is consistent with conclusions drawn by a physician consulting to Congress about COVID-19 when she concluded there is a pervasive problem on the Hill with how we prove the value of low-cost treatment. Okay, so what he's saying there is drugs that are not going to make a lot of money for Big Pharma tend to not even be given the room and the money to do enough testing to prove them. And then if they are starting to be proven effective, then they're not covered in the mainstream media, so doctors across the country are not going to know about them. And he gets into a specific example of the main drug he believes could have a huge impact. And here it is. Ivermectin is highly safe. This is again from his transcript of his witness testimony. Ivermectin is highly safe, widely available, and low cost. Its discovery was awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine. This is its discovery not for COVID-19, but for other things. Nobel Prize in Medicine, and is already included on the WHO's World List of Essential Medicines. We now have data from over 20 well-designed clinical studies, 10 of them randomized, controlled trials, with every study consistently reporting large magnitude and statistically significant benefits in decreasing transmission rates, shortening recovery times, decreasing hospitalizations, or large reductions in deaths. This clinical data is also supported by multiple basic science in vitro and animal studies. And then he goes into to other writings that have been put forward about the effectiveness. And then down here he says, these data show that ivermectin is effectively a miracle drug against COVID-19. The magnitude of the effect is similar to its Nobel Prize-worthy historical impacts against parasitic disease across many parts of the globe. So he's saying that there have been studies. There have not been enough studies for the FDA. But the thing is, those studies could be rushed. They could be done quickly. They could be done right now. And if this could be if found effective, which he's saying it has been found effective, it could be made widely available across the country and save a lot of lives. And in his testimony, he's nearly breaking down because he actually, unlike many of these doctors, is working with the patients. He's on the front lines. He sees people dying. He sees families destroyed. And now I'm not him. And I'm also not a scientist. I have been working here with my beakers. I have my beakers out and I've been doing a lot of beaker stuff. And so I think I'm getting really close to proving how effective this is because I take the beakers and I hit them together. And I think that's basically what you do, right? And sometimes you pour like some iced tea in them or something. No, I'm not a scientist. However, I think that the points of what he's saying, whether ivermectin is a miracle drug or not, the points of what he's saying are incredibly powerful and important, and they'll get no mainstream coverage. This will not be mentioned on CNN. This will not be covered. He's saying, and actually I covered this, I'll get to that in a second. I covered this in another way several months ago, that the treatments that allow for large pharmaceutical companies to have success, to be powerful, to make money, those treatments are far more likely to get backed by the FDA, by the CDC, to get the studies, large-scale studies done and funded to have it happen. And then to get the media coverage, because guess who owns our media? How many commercials do you see for fucking pills on CNN and Fox News and MSNBC? Most of them are fucking pill ads. These companies own our media. So if there is something that is useful against COVID-19 and something else that is useful against it, and one of them benefits big pharma, either by the amount of power they have or by the amount of money they're making, then that one that benefits them is all that will get talked about. And so I actually covered this similarly. I didn't cover that drug, ivermectin, but I covered another 3-drug cocktail that there was an article in The Intercept and a few other articles about how this 3-drug cocktail was proving as effective, if not more effective, than remdesivir. And remdesivir was the drug that's been pushed by all your mainstream media and everything else, and it's the one they talk about. And yet this 3-drug cocktail that's equally effective or more effective was not talked about at all because it's generic drugs. It doesn't make them money. Generic drugs no longer benefit big pharma. And so they just can't get the amount of money from it that they could get from remdesivir. So even if the two are equally, let's assume that the generic one isn't even more effective. It's just equally effective to remdesivir. One of them is free for fucking people, or close to free. I mean, how many fucking billions of dollars would that save from medical debt on people to not be taking the drug that cost them a shitload of money? So I mean, just in every way, this is how our system works. It is profit above all else. So even if, like I said, I don't know Dr. Corey. He sounds like he's speaking the truth. But let's say someone emails me tomorrow and says, oh, Dr. Corey's a lunatic, and look at this, here's a picture of him fucking a goat. To be clear, I have not seen any photos of him fucking goats. But I mean, I don't think it was a goat. It was some other animal. I don't know. Kidding. So even if someone were to do that tomorrow, and I'd be like, oh shit, I just said this guy was making sense. Still, his points are legit. Even if I find out tomorrow, this guy, oh yeah, it turns out he has a crazy past of all horrible things. The points are legit. That it's very difficult for these doctors and scientists to prove the efficacy of something that does not benefit big pharma. Even if big pharma is not technically their boss or not technically running the hospitals or anything else. It's that the studies to get this shit funded, to get the government approval, to get the media coverage, it just doesn't happen unless you've got a connection to big pharma. And again, this cannot be talked about in mainstream media, corporate media. So I think it sounds like this guy's making a lot of sense, even though I don't know the drug. But the point is the same. Whether this drug, let's say this drug goes through more trial and it turns out it's not as effective, it's effective with some people and not others, still the points are legit. And it should be tested. And it should, he's saying it's been tested enough for kind of an emergency approval for COVID-19. It's approved. It's already approved for other things. The other thing is that we know this drug is safe, right? Because it's already been approved for dealing with parasites. And so we know it's not going to cause like horrific harm. Like Trump said, inject yourself with bleach, which would kill you. So we know it's safe to use. It just hasn't been approved for this use. All right. So those are the two redacted stories, covered up stories that I wanted to bring you on this Moment of Clarity breaking news. I will answer some questions. I was going to say that I'm going to give away 5 free signed copies of my book, Bullet Points and Punchlines. If you just join the email list, text the word redacted to 33777. It's free to join the email list, and that'll automatically get you subscribed. All right, so I'll answer some questions here if anybody's got some topics or questions. Kaylee wants to know if I will follow her back on Twitter. I don't know. Tweet at me and I'll try to remember. Let's see. Kimberly S says Biden has been confirmed. Yeah. So I'm sure that's going to change a lot of things in our country, considering Biden actually said, quote, nothing much will change. Nick's asking about dueling electors. Oh, if a state were to approve the wrong elect. I mean, here's the thing: is like if a state did that, let's say a state vote went for Biden, and they just said, "Oh, we're sending our Trump electors to," I mean, then that's the end of any kind of look. I was going to say any kind of democratic process. Our democracy was lost long ago, right? It's bought out. It's completely rigged. There's very little say that the American people have. But whatever tiny little modicum of like choice Americans have, the moment states are like, yeah, we don't give a shit. Just send in the Trump electors anyway. It's over. It's done. I mean, the little remainder is done. So I think, yeah. I mean that would be sad to see that little remainder go. But I also think we need to acknowledge that this shit has been rigged for a long time. I mean, really, the money is the biggest rigging. There's a lot of other ways. So one of which I just spent the fucking first 20 minutes going over. But the money is the biggest thing. You can't win a seat unless you have spent an outrageous amount of money. So it's really rigged by money is the biggest one. Katrina is saying Bill Barr resigned. Did he? I didn't see that. That's interesting to know. Let's see here. So, thank you for all the comments. Many of them are not questions, so I'm scrolling past them. Tanya Princess Jones is saying Bernie has always been willing to sacrifice us in the end. And I don't know. She then says something about Jews, but I can't really follow it, but hoping it's not an anti-Semitic comment because that would suck. But in terms of Bernie has always been willing to sell us out. It's like, yeah. I mean, some people are like, oh, from the beginning, Bernie's whole point was to be a sheepdog. I don't believe that. I believe Bernie thought that he had a shot. But in the end, he did run around campaigning for Hillary. He did run around campaigning for Joe Biden. So I'm not going to argue with anybody who's like, fuck Bernie. You know, fair points. I think he should have. He had a lot of power to change this country for the good, especially in 2016. And if he had done it, if he had used that power to create a new party, I think that it would have been very powerful. And, you know, that's one of the reasons I support Movement for a People's Party, MPP. Everybody should look it up. I don't think that much change comes from electoral politics, but what change does comes from being able to pressure our government and have a feasible left-wing alternative. So if you don't have that, if there is no, I mean, you have two corporate parties, there is no left wing. If you have no left wing alternative to vote for, then there is no pressure. There is no leverage. There's no ability to make them do fuck all. So if MPP were to get bigger, and let's say it's not taking over the Senate, but it's a pressure to the Democrats to actually be left wing, that would be a success. Even just that would have some influence. So, to act like it's, you know, that I'm not going to act like Bernie Sanders was, you know, Mr. fucking hero. But he did say a lot of important things that I think continue to echo on, like Medicare for all and Green New Deal and other things that I'm glad people are finally talking about. Let's see here. Brandon says, I hear people say that MPP is shilling for the Dems, and I'm unsure. What do you think, Lee? I know the people at MPP, and I have never heard them shilling for the Dems. I assume the only thing I can imagine that's talking about is that MPP does support Nina Turner, who has announced she's running for Congress. I think Ohio, and in her state Congress, there is no MPP, or MPP is not on the ballot. So she is running as a Democrat, and they are supporting Nina Turner. So that means, by definition, they're supporting a Democrat. However, I will say this: Nina Turner she's not a standard Democrat. I've seen no sheepdogging out of her. Of the interactions I've had with her online, or the speeches I've heard her give, she seems very genuine and would be an impressive asset in Congress. So I think MPP supporting Nina Turner, who has been an advocate for MPP, does not count as them shilling for the Dems. I'd be very surprised to see MPP support Democrats in general. No one has been more, other than the Green Party, has been more outspoken against like Joe Biden and against corporate Dems. So I don't believe that sacrifices MPP or harms what MPP stands for. All right, I'll wrap it up here in a few minutes, but I'm glad so many people joined. Let's see. Sometimes it's hard to read the comments when they're flying by, but I'll answer at least one more. Kendra Kimball says, how in the fresh hell did this bullshit end up on my feed? Well, I'm glad to hear you go, Kendra. Go back to your little bubble of Trump world, or whatever the fuck you believe in. Someone says Nina seems legit. Someone said I need to get some rest. Thank you. All right, these are scrolling by a little too quick. Well, let's see. None of those are questions. Oh, Tony also asked me if I'm excited about Nina Turner. I mean, I always think this shit's going to be rigged, so I don't know about getting excited, but I am excited with the stuff Nina Turner preaches and what she says, and she seems pretty impressive. Miss Knowledge All wants to know, is Lee Jewish? Lee is Jewish by birth, atheist by choice. My mother is Jewish. My father is not. And yeah. So, but I don't think religion defines me, and I'm not religious. So do with that as you will. J. Derek Under wants to know why you will say everyone's name but mine weird. I don't know if I was avoiding saying your name, J. Derek. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. Oh, man, I was going to answer one more. Now I lost it. Something William asked what I think of... William Morant wants to know what I think of the Green Party. I think the Green Party, pretty much everything I believe the Green Party believes. So I think they stand for a lot of impressive things. But I do think that, in general, we need some new energy in the third party area. The Green Party, the fact that it's been around this long and still no member of Congress is pretty upsetting. So I think I think there needs to be, and I'll let MPP speak for themselves, but I think there needs to be a party that is really more about action than about electoral politics. It's like they have that electoral politics side of them, but they are more known for being active in people's neighborhoods and helping people, and really on the ground stuff. Now, the problem is, where does the money come from that? Where does the money come to do that? That's a very difficult question. You can obviously nowadays ask for people to help you fund it, but it becomes, getting crowdsourcing things is not easy either. That takes a lot of work as well. So I think that, to me, that would be the most powerful kind of party, something that is clear activists, which, yeah, sure, they have an electoral side, but that's not their main goal or their main thrust. And what that does is it makes it harder to sideline them, because people see them in their neighborhoods and their communities and their cities, no matter what. Like, you can stop them from getting into the debates, but they're still going to be there fucking helping make sure everybody has housing and food and water and everything. I'm not, as I often say, I'm more of a screamer than an organizer. So figuring out the exact details, the exact logistics on how to make something like that work, make something like that happen, really the nitty gritty of the devil's in the details kind of shit, that's for someone else. And I hope people are working on it. I could talk about someone's asking about Jimmy Dore. I could mention that. So Jimmy Dore, I was on his show the other day and we discussed this. He said he is standing he is demanding that the so-called true progressives, the squad, and now there's a couple of more, there's only a handful in all of Congress, reserve their vote for Nancy Pelosi as speaker unless she promises to put Medicare for all to a vote in the House. Now, the Democrats run the House and they can put whoever they want as speaker. However, if that entire squad plus whatever, 4 other very progressive, rather progressive Congress people were to withhold their votes if they for Nancy Pelosi, if there was no vote for Medicare for all, they would cut it pretty close to whether she'd actually get elected as Speaker of the House. And so it could create a pressure to get a Medicare for all vote. Now, people have decided, and so I was on Jimmy Dore's show, and he was putting this idea out there, and I said, I'm all for it. Sure, why not? The progressives have the true progressives I'm talking now. I'm not talking the Progressive Caucus, which has 100 people in it, and none of them are progressive except for 5. I'm talking about the real, actual progressives in Congress. So we're talking, 6, 7 people, maybe. They don't have much power. 7 people in a House that has 200 some Democrats. It's not a lot of power. However, they could have a little bit of power in this sense if they were to actually reserve their vote or, hold back their vote for Nancy Pelosi. And so I'm like, fuck yeah, fucking demand a Medicare for all vote. So now people have decided to go after Jimmy Dore because he's created this idea, this policy, this stance, and they're attacking him because he's also, and I think there's some validity to it, said that if they don't do this, if they don't demand a Medicare for all vote, then they aren't real progressives. Even that little core of 6 or 7 or whatever, he's saying there aren't true progressives if they don't demand this. And so now people are attacking him, which, what the fuck? It's like there is no left. There is very little actual left in our entire Congress. And so one guy who has a YouTube show says, hey, fucking demand a healthcare for all vote and refuse to elect the completely corrupt 100 millionaire Nancy Pelosi to Speaker of the House because she has done fucking nothing for people. And other than impeach Trump on standard corruption rather than impeach him on war crimes or impeach him on some real shit, and push this Russiagate hoax that has completely collapsed and has made everybody doubt whatever remaining faith there was in any kind of media, which I kind of like that. If you were going to fucking shit the bed, why not let them do it, and that so that everyone can see how thoroughly our mainstream media has been corrupted. So in that way, maybe Russiagate was good. But she supported, all this horseshit. She is a meaningless human being in that sense. And so it's like, why are you mad at Jimmy Dore for fucking demanding they stand up for this? Fuck you. If you want to be mad at something, be mad at those who stand in the way of Medicare for all, those who try and stop Medicare for all, those who try and stop people from getting health care. Be mad at Joe Biden for all the shit he's done over the years, creating the largest prison state the world has ever seen. His racist shit, his sexual assaults, be mad at fucking him. Be mad at Kamala Harris for imprisoning people in California because their kids didn't show up to school enough, for imprisoning people for using marijuana, even though she herself has likely used it because when asked about it, she laughed rather than answer. Be mad at her for not prosecuting Mnuchin, fucking king of foreclosures after the foreclosure crisis. Be mad at that shit. Don't get mad at Jimmy Dore. Fuck you. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this Jimmy Dore scandal, which, at least it's getting attention to Medicare for all and that kind of stuff. By the way, AOC has said that it's not a good plan and basically said they won't hold up their votes for Medicare for all because, for Nancy Pelosi, because she says it's not a good plan because they don't have the votes there yet for Medicare for all, and they need to get the votes for Medicare for all. But I'm like, fucking look at what the Republicans do. When the Republicans want to overturn Obamacare, they have votes on it every goddamn week, even though they're losing them all. They don't give a shit. They don't wait around to have the perfect magical number of No, they're fucking like every day. They're like Obamacare. Do that with Medicare for all. Just keep fucking voting on it, putting it forward, putting it through committees. Just keep doing it until it's all anyone's talking about and becomes politically unfeasible for anyone to stand against it. That's how you get shit done, not equivocating like, oh, well, maybe one day we'll have the votes. Anyway, that's your completely inept Congress for you. All right, guys, a couple of things real quick. I have a new Rockfin channel. I have premium content over there. I've just created a new series called Broken News, where I, pull up CNN articles and shit like that and show you the manipulation, the propaganda that they use. And that is at rockfin.com/Lee Camp. There's plenty of free stuff over there too, but that's the premium series. And they treat content creators better than YouTube does. So that's why I've gone over there. If you're on Facebook right now, please subscribe to both the Rockfin, but also youtube.com/Moment of Clarity. If you're watching this on a non-Moment of Clarity YouTube channel, please go subscribe to youtube.com/Moment of Clarity. Also, let's see what else. Yeah, you can get a chance to win the free signed copy of the book by texting the word redacted to 33777. It will ask for your email address, and you just send that in, and that will get you signed up to the free emails. It's just a couple a week, one a week or so, sometimes two. And it'll also get you signed up to possibly win a free signed copy of the book. Also, I've been taking topic requests for Moment of Clarity rants, and you can send those to leecampmail@gmail.com. I've already done 2 topics that have been sent in from viewers. So leecamp mail, MAIL, @gmail.com, and send your topic requests there. And I can't promise I'll get to yours, but I'm going to get to some of them. So, yeah. All right. Keep fighting.